Chapter 1891. On this half of the mountain that served as the foundation, there were no less than hundreds of cultivators' cave residences and training grounds. Inside these residences were either medicinal pills, secret manuals, weapons, spirit herbs, or rare metals. Chu Yang accepted all of them without hesitation. Since he was already here, he would naturally accept whatever he could. He only left behind some low-grade items that the sword spirit had appraised. He couldn't possibly stay here for a few days and let others in, right? That would be too obvious. If they suspected that someone had beaten them to it, there would always be trouble in the future. Here. The sword spirit cried out in surprise. Novel chapters are updated the fastest. The two of them finally found the answer to their question on the way to the top of the mountain. At a certain corner, there was a valley densely packed with corpses. Every bone was sparkling and shiny. The skeletons were like mountains. Chu Yang sucked in a breath of cold air. The corpses piled up in this valley were probably no less than tens of thousands of people. Chu Yang walked over lightly and casually flipped one of the corpses over. Some of the bones turned into white ash after being flipped over. But a few thigh bones, arm bones, and skulls were still intact. They had all turned into a kind of texture that seemed like stone or jade. Obviously, these bones had turned into fossils. Among them, there were many bones that were still of the original texture. Those were the bones of experts who had reached the celestial being realm when they were alive. Even after hundreds of thousands of years had passed, their bones could still maintain their original texture. But they were unable to recover their vitality. The fatal injuries of these people are actually the same. Chu Yang looked at the bones on the ground and revealed a look of horror. They were all stabbed in the chest by a sword. I'm afraid it wasn't just a sword. It was sword energy. The sword spirit corrected him. The sword energy entered the body. It first shattered the origin soul of the person who was hit, then cut off their life force. The person who did this was extremely vicious and merciless. He didn't even give them a chance to die. It's a direct and complete destruction. With so many people piled up here, the person who did this only used 3 swords at most. The sword chi must have been imbued with the ability to chase after life and lock the soul. Kill all of them. Previously, the sword spirit had followed Shuelehan for many years, so he more or less had a certain understanding of people of Shuelehan's level. At this moment, his voice was very solemn as he said, "Judging from the signs here, the cultivation of the person who did this, even if it's not as high as my lord's, it's probably not that far off." Chu Yang nodded his head in agreement. The calamity sword whizzed out. They began to wantonly plunder and collect spirit herbs in the valley. Because there were too many experts who had died here, and their cultivations when they were alive had turned into spirit chi, the quality of the spirit herbs growing in the vicinity was also extremely high. However, Chu Yang always felt that this kind of elixir was somewhat disgusting. Therefore, he opened up a medicinal field for himself and made up his mind that the spiritual herbs produced here would belong to Zj and his family. Not even a little bit. In the middle of the 10,000 corpses, a pitch-black flower stood in the wind, constantly emitting wisps of black chi. That's the ghost flower, the sword spirit sighed. Only under the premise that many people have died, and under the premise that these dead people's original cultivation must be very high, will there be a chance for such a strange flower to appear. I really didn't expect that it would actually appear here, and that it's growing like a big tree. Ghost flower. The conditions for this flower to appear are so harsh, it must be of great use, right? Chu Yang asked. That's hard to say. I've only heard that the ghost flower can connect the 2 realms of yin and yang, but I don't know what its specific use is, the sword spirit said. As he spoke, he sized up this ghost flower somewhat excitedly. She muttered, "If you don't know this, then who cares about that? This? That?" Chu Yang was startled. This and that. The sword spirit sized it up for a while and reached out to touch it. Finally, he shook his head in disappointment. "Looks like it should be. Keep them both. This thing should be useful in the future. Even if it's useless, don't leave it here and let others take advantage of it." "All right." Chu Yang waved his hand and was about to put it away when the black fog on the ghost flower transformed into a clear human face. It bared its fangs and rushed towards Chu Yang. Chu Yang was startled when he saw this. He was about to use his palm to disperse or force back that strange face, but the sword spirit was one step ahead of him. He excitedly rushed forward. So it really exists. I almost misjudged it just now. Leave it to me. This thing is a great supplement for me. Immediately, the sword spirit flashed high in the sky and turned into a pitch-black phoenix. It opened its big mouth and spouted pitch-black ink-colored flames. Then, it rushed towards the monster in front of it. That monster was caught off guard, and its reaction was somewhat slow. In an instant, the sword spirit's black flames landed on its body. Chu Yang thought that the two of them would have to fight for a long time, but he didn't expect that the monster would immediately let out a hoarse scream and turn around to escape when the black flames touched its body. When Chu Yang heard this scream, he felt as if his soul was being shaken. The phoenix transformed from the sword spirit chased after the monster relentlessly. Along the way, the phoenix kept spitting out black flames. Every time the flames touched the monster's body, it would evaporate into a puff of black mist. The moment the black mist appeared, it would be quickly absorbed by the phoenix transformed from the sword spirit. After that, the size of the phoenix would increase by one size. As the mist continued to be absorbed, the black flames around the phoenix became more intense, more dazzling, and more dazzling. Not only was the monster unable to fight back, it could only run in circles around the ghost flower. It seemed that it couldn't get too far away from the ghost flower. This situation naturally made it easier for the sword spirit to chase after it. Later on, the monster let out a pitiful cry, as if it was begging for mercy. However, the sword spirit's phoenix didn't show any mercy. It ferociously pounced on the monster and turned it into a pitch-black fog with a mouthful of flames. Then, it spread its wings and instantly doubled in size. Whoosh! The sword spirit returned to his human form and landed on the ground with a satisfied look on his face. He was beaming with joy like a cat that had just stolen a fish. He looked lazy and a little greedy. What kind of shit is this? Chu Yang asked, looking at your perverted appearance after eating it, it really doesn't feel good, shit. The sword spirit said proudly, this thing is useless for you living people. It's completely useless, and it will only cause harm if it's used. But to a spirit like me, it's as good as eating a miracle medicine. This thing is called the 10,000 souls spiritual body. If not for the fact that so many experts have died here, it would be a good thing that can only be formed after hundreds of thousands of years of resentment. I didn't expect to have such an unexpected harvest this time. I've really struck it rich. Quickly tell me what kind of shit you got after eating this thing. Chu Yang said as he kept the ghost flower. Simply put, after eating this thing, I'll be able to recover my body. Then, I'll be able to reconstruct my body, and be reborn from my soul. The sword spirit raised his head and roared, I've been waiting for this day. But I've been waiting for 130,000 years. Chu Yang didn't know what kind of shit this was. He clicked his tongue and said disdainfully, isn't it just a chance to live under the sun again? Look at how excited you are. I've been living under the sun every day, but I'm not as excited as you are. The sword spirit was completely speechless. How can I have shit with you? Aren't you afraid of being punished by the heavens for saying such things? Oh right. Where did that extremely sharp divine soul of the me calamity that you were talking about go? We've been here for quite some time. Why haven't I seen that fellow's shadow? Chu Yang frowned and looked at the top half of the mountain in front of him. He muttered, that golden and purple aura should be the headquarters of that super sect. The sword spirit nodded. That should be the case. But something is strange. We have been here for quite some time. Why hasn't the soul of calamity appeared yet? He is very sensitive to the aura of living beings. Bah. Why am I thinking the same thing as you? It's our luck that we didn't meet the divine soul. If we really meet that thing, we won't be able to leave. At this moment, a hoarse laughter came from behind the two of them. Rather than a laugh, it was more like a weird sound made by bones that made one's teeth ache. A sinister voice said, I've always been here. It's just that you didn't notice me. The reason why I've been here is to wait for you to come here. You also know that you won't be able to leave after meeting me. Just as you thought, Since you're here, don't think about leaving. Yuren's voice changed and he laughed strangely. It's actually a living person and a spiritual body. Excellent, excellent. Just in time to save me all the trouble. The sword spirit's face changed and he exclaimed, it's actually a peak divine soul with complete consciousness. It's a super divine soul that can communicate with any living being. We're dead meat. Chu Yang's face also changed greatly. Turning his head, he realized that everything he had seen on the way here had all disappeared. Even the entire sky was filled with a dark and cold aura of death. Kaye, Kaye, Kaye. One after another, zombies emerged from the boundless darkness, their eyes flickering with ghostly flames. These zombies were naked, and their muscles seemed to have congealed on their bodies. They were rotting like the other zombies, and some of them were still wearing clothes. Some were wielding swords, some were wielding long knives, some were wielding whips, some were wielding daggers, and some were even carrying a large staff made of unknown metal. And all the zombies had one thing in common, all of their faces were ashen. If it weren't for the flickering ghostly flames in their eyes, and the large bloody holes in their throats that were constantly being torn open by the sword wounds, Chu Yang would almost have suspected that these people were all alive. To be continued. P.S. Requesting monthly votes. Behind them, Aunt Guan was closing in. In front of them, Brother Dong was running further and further away. Feng Ling felt extremely uncomfortable being sandwiched between this big brother and big sister. Brothers and sisters, let us trample the mountains and march towards the stars. Advance. Advance. Charge in. Chapter 1892. Lord Sword Master. The sword spirit was so nervous that he almost stuttered. This is really bad. This is a zombie puppet cultivated after the tribulation godly soul devoured everyone's dissipated original souls. One of the prerequisites for making this kind of zombie puppet is that the cultivation of these puppets must be at least celestial being when they were alive. This is really troublesome. This place is actually the location of a super sect that is not inferior to the current soaring heaven faction. Chu Yang's expression became infinitely calm. He said coldly, whether it's bad or not, we'll know in a while. What's the use of panicking now? The more dangerous the moment, the calmer Chu Yang's mind was. Baidu search PC. Chu Yang's eyes turned. He had already judged the current situation. There was no doubt that they had no chance of winning. Chu Yang and the sword spirit would have died a violent death in less than a round if they had fought normally. In all directions, there were a total of 7 zombies walking over mechanically, slowly raising their weapons. Another sharp whistling sound was heard in the air, and a cloud of grey smoke swept past with a shua sound. The dense smoke twisted in the air, and slowly revealed the image of an old man in a hemp robe. His long beard fluttered in the air, and his face was thin. This old man who had suddenly appeared was dressed like the people outside. He stood in the air with his hands clasped behind his back. His pair of ice-cold eyes were looking at Chu Yang and the sword spirit. In his eyes, there was a kind of extremely cold and excited expression. The sword spirit trembled. He was really scared. He didn't expect to encounter such a desperate situation when he just got the opportunity to become a human again. Could it be that his idea of becoming a human again was against heaven's will? He didn't expect it at all. This tribulation godly soul was actually a powerful one that had never appeared in history. It had reached the point where it was very human-like. Its cultivation was as if it was alive, and its wisdom was as complete as a living person. This kind of tribulation godly soul was completely capable of fighting against super experts at the saint level, although its strength was only equivalent to a beginner saint. But in the Heaven Imperial Court, it was already close to a supreme existence. It even had an additional ability compared to a saint in the general sense, which was that it couldn't be killed. It couldn't be smashed, and it was almost impossible to destroy a soul body. It couldn't be injured at all, and it couldn't feel pain. Even if its body was completely smashed into pieces, it could be reassembled in the next moment. Moreover, its power was not reduced in the slightest. This was definitely a divine soul calamity that would give even a saint stage expert a headache. If the myriad soul's soul body was a great tonic for the sword spirit, then the sword spirit was also the best tonic for this incomparably powerful divine soul in front of him. The sword spirit and Chu Yang had no power to fight back in front of such an existence. The Tribulation Sword Master and Tribulation Sword Spirit were about to die. How to avoid death and prolong life? The crisis didn't end there. The Sword Spirit and Chu Yang realized this almost at the same time. From the moment the soul of the calamity appeared, he actually felt a strong restriction. Yes, it was a restriction. Instead of suppression, if it was purely suppression. That was because his movements were inconvenient, and he was intimidated and suppressed by a certain aspect of the other party's cultivation, aura, and so on. However, the real situation now was completely different. His body could still move freely, but he could only move within a range of 3 feet around him. His divine sense and internal breath could also operate on their own, but they couldn't extend beyond that range. But if he wanted to go out, whether it was his physical body, divine sense, or internal breath, it was completely impossible. Even if he wanted to go back to the tribulation space, he couldn't do so. Judging from this situation, it seemed that the entire space here had been sealed. The sword spirit's face changed drastically. This time, they were really in trouble. Chu Yang's face also changed a little. Even the tribulation space couldn't be returned. His biggest trump card couldn't be used directly. This was really a serious matter, but he immediately calmed down. In such a terrible situation where he was the meat on the chopping board, what was the use of panicking? The more panicked he was, the faster he might die. Even if he really entered the Yellow Spring, it was better to be calm. In other words, this was the legendary dying to save face. But how many people in the world could really be so dying to save face? Even if he died, he would die in a carefree manner. Why didn't he just kill me directly? Chu Yang thought quickly. Could it be that he wants to know something? This was the most reliable inference that Chu Yang could think of. Or, he hasn't seen a living person here for too long and is very lonely. Another unreliable, but barely plausible, inference. Or, is there any other reason? It should be like this. If it were me, I would have long collapsed in a place where I couldn't get out for hundreds of thousands of years. Loneliness and solitude were the greatest enemies of mankind. Even the divine spirit of a tribulation was not exempt from this. Countless thoughts flashed through Chu Yang's mind, but his face remained calm. Since he didn't die immediately, then there was still a chance. Although the chance in front of him was very slim, it was still a chance. A crisis might not necessarily be unable to turn into a turning point. As long as the other party had some kind of motive, he might have a chance of survival. The divine spirit of a tribulation that suddenly floated out waved his hand. The zombies and puppets that were advancing around immediately stopped in their tracks. They stood there mechanically, motionless, like wooden sculptures. Then, the divine spirit of a tribulation walked down from the sky step by step with his hands behind his back. He wore a long robe, and his long beard fluttered in the wind. His face was thin, and his spirit was hale and hearty. This demeanor, this bearing, this was clearly that of a peerless expert, a peerless genius. But from the situation in front of him, no matter how one looked at it, this was clearly a living person. However, this living person was clearly just formed by the smoke. It completed a series of transformations right in front of Chu Yang and the sword spirit. Chu Yang's psychological quality was indeed strong enough. At this moment, he could still maintain a calm expression. He even smiled and cupped his fists in greeting. "Senior, it's really fate that we meet today." The divine spirit of a tribulation looked at Chu Yang with a pair of eyes. He actually smiled like spring water and nodded slightly. He said, "Not bad, not bad. You and I are indeed fated. This old man has been trapped here for hundreds of thousands of years. Only now do I see a living person like you. If this isn't fate, then what is it?" The divine spirit of a tribulation spoke in a somewhat gloomy and dry voice at the beginning. He even stuttered a little. But after a few sentences, the gloominess in his voice was removed and it became smooth. This was probably because he rarely spoke for hundreds of thousands of years. No matter who it was, it would be very lucky if they didn't directly become mute after hundreds of thousands of years. It was already extremely rare to be able to speak like this divine spirit of a tribulation. And this was the voice of the divine spirit of a tribulation. The more he spoke, the more peaceful and kind it became. It was even more magical. At the same time, Chu Yang and the sword spirit were even more shocked. This person's strength was really terrifying. They really didn't know what level he had reached. But regarding this change, Chu Yang felt more at ease. Even if the strength of this soul calamity was stronger than he had expected, it didn't matter. His strength had long since exceeded the scope of what he could resist, so what if he was a bit stronger? On the contrary, by talking to him in such an amiable manner, he had already provided him with an opportunity to turn the situation around. The divine spirit of a tribulation casually pointed at him. The sword spirit only felt that there was another layer of imprisonment on him. He couldn't even speak and could only stand there in a daze. Let's have a good chat now. This little soul is more or less a hindrance here. If it weren't for the fact that I need to devour his soul together, I would have killed him right now. The divine spirit of a tribulation smiled faintly. His voice was clear and elegant. Senior, I'm very honored to have an invitation. Chu Yang laughed. To have an opportunity to have a good chat with you is a great opportunity that only comes once in hundreds of thousands of years. There are countless people in the world, but only I have such a fate. Of course, you should feel honored because you have such a heaven-sent opportunity to give your body to me. Your body can shock the world and become a mighty being in the world. You can even live forever. How can I not be honored? The divine spirit of a tribulation said somewhat mockingly. Chu Yang said politely, so that's what you plan to do? To be able to give my body to you, I naturally feel honored. But may I ask, if I give my body to you, how should I give it to you? And after I give it to you, where should I place my soul? I believe that if I give my body to you, you won't treat me badly, right? The divine spirit of a tribulation chuckled. Little one, you're quite bold. You're very imaginative. At this juncture, you actually dare to bicker with me and even bargain with me. Chu Yang laughed. If you're audacious, you'll die if you bargain, but don't you think you won't die if you kneel and beg for mercy? Since I can't escape no matter what, I might as well fight with you. If I can't get away with it, it's still a bargain. In front of you, I'm afraid that's already the limit of what I can do. Good. Well said. The divine spirit of a tribulation revealed a look of appreciation. You're so young. It's rare for you to be so tough. When I devour your soul, I'll let you suffer less. I'll just give you a quick death. But in the end, your soul will still be destroyed and you'll be doomed eternally. At this juncture, you can still think for me. That's really rare. Chu Yang said gratefully, you must have been a good person when you were alive. Others wanted him to be doomed eternally, and he actually praised them for being a good person. The divine spirit of a tribulation looked at him with a smile that wasn't a smile. He said, I didn't expect that after hundreds of thousands of years, I'll see a living person for the first time. Are all the young people nowadays so good? You've made me look at you in a new light. P.S. Updated. He let out a sigh of relief. There were still 8 hours and 4 chapters left. It should be about time. Let me say one thing. There's a bad trend in the book review section now. Some people are asking us to buy monthly tickets. This makes me very angry. The last battle of pride, no matter whether we win or lose, must be fair and square. We've failed countless times, but we can still hold our heads high and laugh proudly because of this. Because we have a clear conscience. This is the last battle of this month. We can't allow this kind of stain. We must accept victory with pride, and we must also accept defeat with pride. I'll say one thing here, all the readers of Pride are not allowed to buy a monthly ticket. Otherwise, it'll be an insult to me. Wind conquers the world. Let us be proud to death. We'd rather break than submit. The world-defying stage Heavens was just like this. Give the opponent the greatest respect, and fight with all your strength. Chapter 1893. I thought that Senior had already had a whole new level of respect for me. Speaking of which, my nerves are probably a little thick-skinned. They all say that I don't like others. For Senior to meet me, it's Senior's luck. However, Since the situation has reached such a stage, can I be more honored? Chu Yang smiled amiably. The sword spirit really admired Chu Yang from the bottom of his heart. Chu Yang was already at such a stage of certain death, yet he could still talk cheerfully and wittily. Even his expression didn't change in the slightest. Could it be that his nerves are made of iron? No, even if they were made of iron, they would have already melted at this point. The tribulation divine soul tilted his head and looked at him with interest. This little guy is really too interesting. Since Junior is about to be swallowed by Senior, and my soul will be destroyed, I wonder if I can have the honor of knowing Senior's name. Chu Yang smiled politely. May I know Senior's name? Even if this Junior dies, I'll still be a ghost. I believe Senior won't refuse to grant such a small wish, right? Haha, little guy, do you know what it means to have your soul destroyed? You actually want to be a ghost? Do you think you still have the chance to be a ghost? The tribulation divine soul first laughed and mocked. Obviously, he was at a disadvantage in the previous bickering and was unwilling to accept it. Now that he had the chance, he immediately took revenge. Chu Yang's heart moved. Revenge for the smallest grievance. Although the cultivation of this tribulation divine soul was high, his manners might not be that good. Then, the tribulation divine soul seemed to be sad again, and a melancholy look appeared on his face. He murmured, I'm already a tribulation divine soul now. Do I still have the face to mention the name of the past? The past is like dust, and time is like smoke. I've disgraced my ancestors. Chu Yang smiled faintly and said, the opponent is strong. It's not the fault of fighting. Even if I failed at the last minute, I've been like this for hundreds of thousands of years. Quietly feeling the passage of time is also a kind of cultivation. This is also a rare luck. As for whether it's bad luck or good luck, it's all up to you. Different people have different opinions. A look of approval appeared in the eyes of the tribulation divine soul, and it looked up to the sky and sighed. That's right, this is also another kind of cultivation. Misfortune? Lucky? It's a matter of opinion. He stood there for a while, feeling a little dejected. There was a hint of reluctance in his voice as he said, this old man hasn't spoken to you for hundreds of thousands of years. Today, I'm able to chat with you, Chu Yang said very understandingly. Junior can accompany Senior to chat for a while. The divine soul of Calamity sighed. You are a sensible child. He was silent for a moment before he said, now. How many years has it been since he was outside? The Emperor Lord of the Eastern Royal Heaven. Is it still Shui Leihan? Chu Yang said, I've never calculated the years outside. But the Emperor of the East is indeed Shui Leihan. There's no doubt about it. Ha ha ha. The expression of the divine soul of Calamity changed a little. From a thin old man with a kind face and kind eyes, he turned into a ferocious ghost with a grimacing face. But then, he changed back and actually smiled lightly. Shui Leihan is indeed worthy of being the Emperor of the East. He is indeed wise and mighty. Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. He obviously couldn't keep his composure. But he suppressed it forcefully. This was also something that could be made use of. Then, he thought to himself, looking at his change, could it be that this fellow is very dissatisfied with Shui Leihan? Could it be that Shui Leihan killed him? He smiled amiably and said, but although the Emperor is wise and mighty, there are some things that can be done. But there are some things that are not fair. Sai, Senior has been out for so many years. Even if I tell you some things, Senior won't listen. It's better if I don't say it. The divine soul smiled faintly and said, if you don't want to talk about it, then let's not talk about it. How can we judge the rights and wrongs of such a peak-level figure? He seemed to be in no hurry to talk about this topic. Chu Yang said, that's right. May I ask Senior, which sect was the original sect of this place? How come you don't see any sign of a sect when you come in this time? He actually managed to divert the topic away. The divine soul of the Calamity finally showed a bit of unhappiness on his face. He said faintly, no matter if it is a sect or sect, it has been destroyed in the end. It turned into dust and was annihilated in the annals of history. What is the point of mentioning its name now? Therefore, on the day this old man woke up, I destroyed all the symbols that could prove my sect's identity. So that's how it is. No wonder, no wonder. Chuyang suddenly realized. Then, he casually flattered him, Senior is indeed wise. The tribulation divine soul looked at the little thing coldly, but now it felt disgusted no matter how it looked at it. Back then, when his sect was massacred, the Eastern Emperor Xue Leihan stood by and did nothing. This matter made him bear a grudge in his heart, and he couldn't let it go even after his death. Even though he took human form again, he still bore a grudge. Naturally, he couldn't wait for someone to say more bad things about Xue Leihan. Although he didn't mind it on the surface, he hoped that Chuyang would say more bad things about the Eastern Emperor. But Chuyang actually refused to mention it. Why did he feel that this bastard was pleasing to the eye just now? It must be an illusion, it must be an illusion. Has His Majesty the Eastern Emperor made any new moves in these years? The divine soul of the calamity divine soul asked. This sentence was actually trying to get to the bottom of it, hoping to find something to show off so that he could use it as a pretext to make a fuss. Chuyang shook his head blankly, looking honest and sincere. Senior, I've actually just ascended to the heavens for a few days. Even if it's the Eastern Royal Heavens, my knowledge is extremely limited. I've never really heard of His Majesty the Eastern Emperor's moves. The divine soul of the calamity divine soul's face twitched. He really felt like cursing out loud. Before his death, he had cultivated himself very well, and his cultivation was very high. Naturally, his willpower was also very strong. But after transforming into a divine soul of the calamity divine soul and going through these hundreds of thousands of years of loneliness by himself, he actually became more and more impatient. It was as if his original calmness had disappeared. He actually became irritable and easily angered. In just a short while, he actually had so many murderous intents. But he really couldn't bear to kill Chuyang just like that. It had been hundreds of thousands of years since he last talked to someone. Now that he was talking to someone, his heart was surging with emotions. There was some indescribable excitement and even novelty. Next, the divine soul of the calamity divine soul started to ask Chuyang about the general situation of the outside world. Chuyang answered all these questions seriously. But under the cover of his honest and sincere expression, there were endless lies. Every word that this fellow said was a complete lie. The affairs of the world are unpredictable. Right now, after the series of great battles in the outside world, the number of experts is very low. For someone like me, although I can't be considered a first-rate or second-rate expert, I can still be considered a third-rate expert. Chuyang said casually. What? With your trashy strength, you can actually be considered a third-rate expert? The divine soul of the calamity divine soul was really shocked this time. This small ant in front of him had at most just broken through to the heaven realm. If he could be considered a third-rate expert, then how would the martial arts realm in the outside world fall to the shit standard? No wonder Senior is so shocked. Actually, I've also read many ancient books. They recorded the endless glory of countless peerless experts in the past. This junior's bit of strength is at most slightly stronger than an ant. But right now, the number of experts in the Eastern Royal Heavens has withered. With this junior's strength, the officials of the Eastern Royal Heavens have repeatedly invited this junior to join them. Chuyang was obviously addicted to making up stories. The more he spoke, the more ridiculous it became. I say, Junior, even if you want to boast in front of this old man, shouldn't you at least say something more reliable? With your bit of strength, the officials of the Eastern Royal Heavens actually invited you to join them time and time again? Do you even believe your words? The divine soul of the calamity divine soul was angered by Chuyang's words. Junior's strength might be weak, but my background is clean and my strength can be considered passable. This is why the Eastern Royal Heavens tried their best to invite Junior several times, but Junior is truly afraid of bringing trouble to myself. I've always politely rejected them because according to the rumors, the Eastern Royal Emperor Jun Xue Leihan brought up the matter of the purple firmament heavenly emperor again and offended the sage monarch. I heard that he is currently heavily injured and if he gets involved with the Eastern Royal Heavens now, it would be a disaster and not a blessing. Chu Li's expression was solemn as he replied respectfully, Senior has been here for a long time and your knowledge of the outside world is too limited. The current Eastern Royal Heavens is no longer the same as before. Back then, due to an unforeseen event, the Eastern Royal Heavens suffered great losses. Junior's strength might be weak, but my background is clean and my strength can be considered passable. Chu Yang sighed, of course, this is only a rumor. How can a small character like me know the real situation? Xue Leihan is heavily injured. Because of the matter of the purple firmament Heavenly Emperor? The divine soul of the calamity divine soul became agitated as if he had eaten an aphrodisiac. Are you serious? Something happened to the purple firmament Heavenly Emperor, Zihao? Chu Yang was instantly speechless. He always spouted nonsense easily, but at this moment, he actually didn't know how to continue. How many years had it been since the purple firmament Heavenly Emperor, Zihao, died? It should be at least several 100,000 years, right? And this divine soul of the calamity divine soul that had been buried for several 100,000 years actually didn't know that the purple firmament Heavenly Emperor was dead. Chu Yang's heart was cramping. How many years had it been since this fellow died? Could it be more than 1,000,000 years? Of course, in such a space, one couldn't sense the passage of time at all. Even this divine soul of the calamity divine soul probably didn't know how many years had passed. You don't even know about the matter of the purple firmament Heavenly Emperor? Chu Yang was speechless. You said that something happened to the purple firmament Heavenly Emperor? The divine soul of calamity became a little crazy. His eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty look. He shouted, "What the hell happened to Zihao? Speak. Hurry and tell me. If you spout any more nonsense, I'll swallow you alive." With a boom, his body suddenly exploded, turning into countless ghost heads, circling wildly in the air. Countless heads were hideous and terrifying as they raised their heads and roared, "Purple firmament Heavenly Emperor, Zihao. Something had happened to him. What the hell happened to him? Say it quickly. Tell me." At this moment, he had gone completely crazy. Chapter 1894. Although Chu Yang's face looked frightened, it was mostly fake. However, his body was really covered in cold sweat. Update P. It wasn't that Chu Yang was timid, but this was the first time he had seen such a phenomenon in his life. Thousands of ghosts appeared, right in front of him. A timid person would have already passed out from such a scene. His mind was full of thoughts, and for a moment, he didn't know how to speak at all. This person definitely knows the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Cloud. He was actually so shocked and agitated when he heard about Zihao. In that case, is this person a friend or a foe of the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds? If he made a wrong judgment at this time, judging from this guy's impulsiveness, he would immediately lose his life. No matter how much he could talk, it would be useless. One wrong word, and the door to death would open. From the way he kept calling him Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds or Zihao and didn't use honorifics, both parties shouldn't be friends. Chu Yang thought quickly. At least not brothers. And there was only impatience in his voice, without any hint of worry. This means, he's an enemy. Say it. Why aren't you saying it? Countless ferocious heads roared together, their voices shaking the world. What exactly happened to Zihao? He's dead, Chu Yang said in the calmest tone. His soul has completely dispersed. As for the details, it's not something I can know. Dead. The Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds, Zihao, is dead. And his soul has dispersed. The spirit of the tribulation screamed in disbelief. Even the heads of countless ghosts shook violently and turned into black smoke at this moment. It was all blurry. It was obvious how much this news affected him. Then, a black smoke rolled and suddenly appeared in front of Chu Yang again. From what you know, tell me in detail, how did Zihao die? How did he die? How did he die? The voice was hurried, and in the end, it directly connected without stopping. Chu Yang frowned. He said, "You're so close, I can't quite breathe." That black smoke immediately retreated 5 feet and transformed back into a huge ghost head with a radius of 3 feet. That mouth seemed to be even bigger than the head. It raised its head and roared, "I've retreated. Hurry up and tell me how he died. How did he die? How did he die?" Arth. Boom. Suddenly, the entire space was filled with ghostly cries and demons, and black smoke filled the air. It covered the sky and covered the earth. An extremely sinister aura suddenly enveloped the entire area. Looking around, other than the area within 30 feet that was barely visible, the rest of the area had sunk into an extremely dark place where one could not even see their own fingers. Thump, thump. Dong, Chu Yang could clearly hear the rapid beating of thousands and tens of thousands of heart. But in this place, there was no other living thing besides him, including the sword spirit. The sword spirit didn't have an organ like a heart. What was going on? However, the changes weren't entirely negative. That was because Chu Yang had another feeling. And this feeling made Chu Yang extremely happy. This change was that the spatial seal controlled by the soul of the calamity seemed to show signs of loosening. It seemed that he had not realized that there was a problem with his control due to the agitation of his emotions. However, this small gap was far from enough for Chu Yang to escape. However, Chu Yang's heart had already calmed down a little. With hope, with this little bit of opportunity, there might be a chance for survival. Sure enough, his weakness was his spiritual power. It's about determination. Although he had heard the sword spirit talk about the horror of the soul of calamity before he came in, he really didn't expect it. The soul of calamity could actually be so terrifying. This adventure was enough to make Chu Yang unforgettable. It was definitely the closest he had come to death in his 2 lives. There was no other. Even just now, he was already prepared to die with a smile. Not to mention that death in his previous life, that was a real death, not a close one. From what I know, combined with all the legends of the Heavenly Imperial Court, the death of the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds back then was really the creation of an eternal legend. Chu Yang sorted out his emotions and slowly went on. He told the soul of the legend of the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds that he knew about, with some changes. Of course, he wouldn't be so stupid as to tell everything, but 70% of it was true. As soon as he opened his mouth, the soul of calamity suddenly quieted down and listened to every word with rapt attention. He was afraid of missing out on a little bit. It could be seen how urgent and serious he was about this information. After attracting all of the divine soul's attention, Chu Yang tried to add a little bit of the power of bewitchment to his voice. If this little bit of power was compared to the total amount that Chu Yang could use, this little bit of power of bewitchment was definitely less than 1%. But Chu Yang really didn't dare to increase it. If this wasn't already the limit of his control, he would have even reduced it a little. Because once it was detected, he would really be dead. But he couldn't not use it at this juncture. This might be his only chance to escape. Where the opportunity was, where the chance of survival was. This time, the soul of calamity was only focused on listening to the matter of the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds and really didn't notice this. He didn't need to worry about an ant like Chu Yang plotting against him at all. If he dared to plot against him, he could plot against him. From his point of view, Chu Yang would definitely not be able to escape from here. He could slowly play with him. Even if he played for decades, it wouldn't be a problem. How many years had it been? No one had accompanied him to talk, no one had accompanied him to pass the time. He was really so lonely that he was going crazy. The extraterrestrial demons invaded the Purple Clouds heavens on a large scale. The Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds led his troops to resist. Chu Yang's voice was full of emotion and was very infectious. The soul of calamity listened quietly and didn't interrupt at all. It was as if he was fascinated by it. It's a pity that in the end, he was alone and without help. All of them died heroically in battle. Even though the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds was tyrannical beyond compare, he still couldn't escape in the end. This is the cause and effect. Chu Yang let out a long sigh. The soul of calamity also let out a long sigh. The black fog fluctuated, but he returned to the appearance of an old man. He looked up to the sky for a long time before he murmured somewhat absent-mindedly, "Died heroically in battle, died heroically in battle. Zhao is really dead, how can he die?" The soul of calamity was silent for a full 5 minutes. Suddenly, he exploded. He beat his chest and stomped his feet, looked up to the sky and roared, "How can he die? Why did he die just like that? Why? Why? This sudden roar made Chu Yang feel as if his head had been shaken. He was immediately shaken to the point of dizziness by this extremely loud roar. Blood flowed out of his 7 orifices. The soul of calamity was still shouting and yelling. Zihao shouldn't have died like that. He shouldn't have. He should have died in my hands. He should have died in my hands. Zihao, you damned executioner. Why did you die? The soul of calamity's expression became even more frenzied. He tore at his own hair and stomped his feet. His face was ferocious, and his body was full of illusions. He yelled, "You're dead. There are more than 78,000 wronged souls here. Who are they going to take their lives from? You should have died in my hands. You should only have died in my hands." The soul of calamity looked up to the sky and roared. Chu Yang's heart trembled. This sentence finally made Chu Yang understand. It completely connected all the causes and effects in this place. It turned out that this place, this super sect, this soul of calamity, this realm of divine source, was actually destroyed in the hands of the heavenly emperor of Purple Cloud. It was the heavenly emperor of Purple Clouds who turned this place into what it was now. In the end, he even used the soul suppressing stone to completely suppress it. If not for his accidental actions that day, perhaps this realm of divine source would still be sealed for a long time. At this moment, the soul of calamity was unusually agitated. Black smoke drifted over and over. It could be seen that the agitation in his heart was already uncontrollable. Suddenly, a hand appeared out of thin air, and grabbed Chu Yang's neck. Then, it lifted him up. "Bastard. Is what you said just now true? Is it true or not?" Chu Yang's feet left the ground. He smiled bitterly and said, "Elder, this is a big matter that the whole world knows. How would I dare to lie? What you said makes sense too." The soul of calamity loosened his grip and threw Chu Yang to the ground. He said furiously, "But what if the heavenly emperor of Purple Clouds is dead? That bastard, that demon executioner, that inhumane butcher, he's already dead, but he actually died with the title of a hero. What kind of bullshit legend did he create? How can there be such a good thing in the world? That damned bastard, he's actually a hero even in death. This isn't fair, it's not fair. The heavens are unfair." The soul of calamity looked up to the sky and roared. He pointed at the sky. "Heavens, you're unfair. You're unfair. You're unfair. RRR. He began to scream hysterically. Chu Yang became more and more anxious. Because although this soul of calamity was now in a state of frenzy and was even a little unconscious, and the space seal had weakened further, Chu Yang still couldn't move at all. If he was still unable to escape before this terrifying fellow regained his senses, then when he truly faced this opponent, there wouldn't even be the slightest bit of luck. Back then, after 300,000 years of accumulation in front of the heavenly storm sect, we became a super sect. But just because we killed the whole family of Zihao's sworn brother's descendant, we incurred such a tragic revenge. The soul of the calamity suddenly quieted down and muttered to itself in a somewhat dejected manner. Its voice was very soft, but within that soft voice, there was an infinite amount of violence. Zihao was bored and passed by here, but what does this have to do with him? Why did he meddle in other people's business? Based on what? Based on what? When he said the last 3 words "based on what," he let out an earth-shattering roar. Chu Yang grinned. "You killed the whole family of his sworn brother's descendant, and you still have the nerve to say that it has nothing to do with him? What kind of logic is this?" But he finally knew that this sect that had disappeared in the annals of history was called the Heavenly Storm Sect. He finally solved a mystery in his heart. P.S. After staying up for several days and nights, I slept less than 10 hours in 4 days. I've already reached my limit. Writing these 10 chapters today makes me want to die. This is the 8th chapter, there are still 2 more chapters. Chapter 1895. The Divine Soul was stunned. "Shit." Chu Yang laughed. "I didn't expect you to really believe it. How satisfying. Ha ha ha. You've been deceived. Do you really think the heavenly emperor of Purple Clouds is dead? Ha 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 ha. You childish bastard. He's not dead. The divine soul was stunned. His mind was in a mess. Not only is he not dead, he's behind you right now. Chu Yang roared. Big brother Zihao. Kill him quickly. This is the best chance to kill him. His eyes stared straight behind the divine soul of the calamity. His face was filled with surprise and joy, as if he had just survived a disaster. The calamity divine soul suddenly quivered and exploded. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Yuan abruptly rose from the ground and fled frantically. The heavenly emperor of purple clouds had flattened the heavenly storm sect with one sword. The power of that sword had scared him out of his wits. He still had lingering fears. Although he hated him so much that he couldn't kill his enemy with his own hands, if the heavenly emperor of purple clouds really appeared, this divine soul would definitely run faster than anyone else. After hundreds of thousands of years of loneliness, he had long forgotten the ways of the world. When Chu Yang shouted like this, he was in a trance and extremely furious state. Moreover, Chu Yang had used his bewitching technique without any regard for the consequences. So, he naturally became vigilant. At the same time, his heart was extremely flustered. Just as the soul and heart of the calamity fell into a state of panic, a crack appeared in the space seal that was originally seamless and without any gap. A gap finally appeared. Chu Yang was overjoyed. He struggled with all his might and shouted, "Go!" He reached out and pulled the sword spirit, who had been locked and couldn't move from the beginning, into the space with unparalleled speed. The divine soul turned back. But he found the heavenly emperor of purple clouds behind him. He knew that he had been deceived and shouted angrily, "Stay!" The divine soul's reaction was really fast. A hand instantly turned into black smoke and chased over at an unimaginable speed. It actually followed closely behind Chu Yang and the sword spirit. Before the tribulation space could close again, it came in with a swoosh. He grabbed Chu Yang's waist even more tightly. Chu Yang felt a strong force pulling him back, and he was unable to resist at all. Alarmed, he shouted, "Sword spirit, you go first." He was caught this time. There was no more luck. He reached out and pushed the sword spirit into the tribulation space, and was about to fly out with the big hand. Otherwise, if the divine soul of the tribulation really chased into the tribulation space, neither of them would be able to survive. However, it was at this moment that an unforeseen event occurred. A miserable howl suddenly resounded from outside. Then, the unprecedentedly powerful pulling force disappeared in an instant, because Chu Yang had resisted with all his strength. This time, he was still charging forward with all his might. The pulling force disappeared too quickly. With a plop, Chu Yang slammed into the sword spirit's body. Both of them turned into rolling gourds and rolled far away in the tribulation space. In fact, there seemed to be a big black hand on Chu Yang's back. It was tightly wrapped around Chu Yang's waist, but it was slowly turning into a black fog. He didn't know why. The giant hand formed by Tribulation's divine soul was actually broken. It was as if it had been cut into two by a sword. Chu Yang was full of surprise. Who saved me? Who was it that was so capable? Cutting off the Tribulation's divine soul's hand with a sword. But at this moment, the Tribulation space was closed again. Even if Chu Yang had heavenly guts, he didn't dare to open it again. He didn't even dare to look back at the outside world. The Tribulation's divine soul's ability was too terrifying. Who knew how high his spiritual perception was? Even if he was in the Tribulation space, he might not be safe. Safety first. In fact, at this point, the Tribulation space was definitely a blessing. There was no need to take any more risk. Chu Yang subconsciously took a few deep breaths. His mind calmed down a little, and cold sweat broke out all over his body. In an instant, his clothes were drenched. Just now, he seemed calm and composed, but in fact, how could Chu Yang not be afraid? It was just that he had been forcefully suppressing and enduring. Now, he was finally safe for the time being. Thinking back to the fear in his heart, he still felt that his soul would scatter at any time. It was too dangerous. It was really too dangerous. Bean-sized beads of sweat trickled down from his forehead. His entire body was trembling. Even his hands were shaking. His face turned deathly pale. Then, It turned waxy yellow. Then, it turned ashen, and finally, it turned deathly black. He had been changing his face all along the way. And, he slowly recovered after a long while. The sword spirit was even weaker than Chu Yang. The tribulation's divine soul's suppression on his power was several times stronger than Chu Yang's. Their characteristics were more similar. After entering the tribulation space, in the familiar environment, he finally recovered. After calming down, the sword spirit was so touched that he fell to his knees. Lord Sword Master. He choked and couldn't speak. Although he was completely restrained from the start, it didn't affect his vision and hearing. Of course, when he saw Chu Yang sacrificing himself to protect ZJ, his heart was in turmoil and he couldn't calm down anymore. Chu Yang had always said that he treated the sword spirit as a brother. The sword spirit was also very touched, but he couldn't help but doubt, is it true? Is it true? All the previous sword masters only treated me as a sword spirit, a tool. Are you really that good? Or is it just a way to win me over? But at this moment, the sword spirit didn't have any doubt in his heart. A sword master who used his own life to fight for the sword spirit's life, who did this to such an extent. Even in extreme danger, at the last moment, he still acted instinctively to protect ZJ. How could he doubt him? Chu Yang said weakly, Sword spirit, can you be touched later? I can't move now, and I don't even have the strength to speak. Don't be touched first, I really don't have the strength to talk or argue with you. As he spoke, blood flowed out of his 7 orifices. When he was outside, his internal organs were continuously shaken by the tribulation's divine soul's terrifying sound waves, and he was continuously injured. In the end, he forcefully used all his cultivation to activate the power of bewitchment. Under the other party's unintentional but powerful reflection, his body and soul were already seriously injured. It could be said that ever since Chu Yang's debut, he had never suffered such serious injuries. Right now, he was sitting down and doing his best. He didn't even have the strength to speak. He wasn't lying. See if there's any way to get this big black hand off my waist. Chu Yang coughed. It's so stuck that it's uncomfortable. Yes. The sword spirit hurriedly stood up. Seeing this big black hand that was gradually dissipating, the sword spirit's eyes shone with a dazzling light. A soul like the sword spirit was a great tonic for the tribulation's divine soul, but the tribulation's divine soul was also the best tonic for the sword spirit. It was just that the sword spirit wasn't a threat to the tribulation's divine soul. In essence, it was just a matter of who was stronger. But there were no absolutes in this world. The sword spirit's body was in a state of constant dissipation. So, it was equivalent to cutting off any thoughts or resistance of the body. So, how could the sword spirit not be excited when the sword spirit's body was in such a state of constant dissipation? Just by swallowing this arm, the sword spirit's cultivation would instantly double. Or even more. How could the sword spirit be polite? He fiercely and impatiently pounced on Chu Yang. Chu Yang frowned, but he could clearly see that the buckle on his waist was getting looser and looser. He kept thinking, what's going on? How could the black hand be broken? A thought flashed through his mind, oh right, the tribulation sword went out to collect elixirs and was always outside. Could it be done by the tribulation sword? But after thinking about it, he felt that it wasn't very likely. Although Chu Yang knew that the tribulation sword was extremely sharp, it depended on who it was facing. With the current power of the tribulation sword, it didn't seem to be able to deal with the tribulation's divine soul at all. Not to mention cutting off one of the tribulation's divine soul's arms. What the hell is going on? Chu Yang, who was chewing 2 heavy pills to treat his internal and external injuries, was puzzled. Well, I'd better try to summon the tribulation sword back. If the tribulation sword was lost here, the loss to China would be too great. Just as Chu Yang entered the tribulation space, a sword light suddenly fell. Like a thunderbolt, it instantly cut off the tribulation's divine soul's arm that was deep into the tribulation space. The sword energy was so sharp that it was really incomparable. It directly destroyed all the divine soul's vitality in that arm. The tribulation's divine soul let out a tragic scream. It hurriedly retreated, retreating a full 3,000 feet. It opened its eyes in fear and looked in front of China. At this moment, it didn't even dare to transform into black fog again. Because this sword could actually devour, this was undoubtedly a sword. It shone with a cold light, as if there was a color wandering back and forth on the sword. It could be said that its appearance was extremely good. The tribulation's divine soul looked at this sword with extreme fear. It could clearly feel that this sword contained an enormous and unparalleled power. This kind of power, even from the purple cloud heavenly emperor back then, he could feel it. The tribulation's divine soul didn't doubt that this sword could easily destroy China. How could there be a divine sword with such power in this world? How could this be? That sword was the tribulation sword. The tribulation sword shone with a cold light and swayed in front of the tribulation's divine soul in a contemptuous manner. The tip of the sword was crooked, and its flying path was disorderly. There was no order to it at all, as if it could be easily knocked down with a stretch of his hand. But the tribulation's divine soul didn't dare to move at all. Not to mention moving, it didn't even dare to move half a step, for fear of provoking that divine sword. Its eyes followed the sword back and forth. The tribulation sword's body shook, and a blurry shadow slowly appeared on it. Although the shadow was blurry, its eyes were filled with an unprecedented ferocious aura. It looked fiercely at the tribulation's divine soul and said sinisterly, "Fuck. You sure have guts, you second-rate brat." Chapter 1896. This strange figure suddenly appeared, and the moment it appeared, it cursed. From P. After saying that, it even glared fiercely at it. An extremely powerful pressure suddenly came down from the sky. The divine spirit felt as if the whole world was pressing down on it. At this moment, its body felt as if it was going to be crushed into powder. It almost knelt down. What kind of existence was this? How could there be such a powerful existence? The divine spirit felt as if it was really trembling. Facing such an existence, it didn't even have the thought to fight back. It was almost about to cry, why did such a thing suddenly appear? Not only would the divine spirit not know, even if Chu Yang and Xue Leihan were here, they would also be absolutely shocked. Even Xue Leihan definitely didn't know that there was such a heaven-defying existence in the land of the sword. If it was only powerful, the divine spirit might not be so afraid because it was an immortal soul to begin with. No matter how powerful the other party was, it could always escape. Even if Zi Hao wasn't dead and was right in front of it, being able to defeat it was already the limit. There was no way he could kill it. The fear earlier was nothing more than a subconscious reaction to its past experience. But just now, in that instant, when the other party's sword came down, one of its arms seemed to have been chopped off when it was still alive, and it lost all feeling. Then, it was completely destroyed by the other party. This meant that the other party was completely capable of dealing with it and killing it. This fact was what the divine spirit was truly most afraid of. After all, it had already been dead for hundreds of thousands of years, and it had also lived in a dead state for hundreds of thousands of years. Even though it was no longer a living person, it cherished the time it could live more than any other living person. To the divine spirit, there was nothing more important than surviving. Naturally, it was even more unwilling to face death again. What was more terrifying was everything that could bring it destruction. That faint shadow looked at it coldly. "Come here." The words were extremely short, but it was mixed with the meaning of not allowing any resistance. The two words turned into golden thunderbolts and blasted on the divine spirit. The divine spirit instantly felt as if its soul was about to dissipate. Indescribable pain and fear filled its heart. Yes, yes. Tribulation's divine soul timidly walked over. Because the other party's indescribable strength, especially the fear of death, had long since completely destroyed the divine soul's arrogance. In front of an even stronger expert, the tribulation divine soul was nothing more than a pitiful worm that was afraid of death. He didn't even dare to take a deep breath. "Look at you." That Ying curled his lips in disdain and scolded, "Look at you." He actually had the nerve to come out and mingle. Why don't you fucking find a piece of tofu and kill yourself? What's the point? It was really depressing. She was actually awakened by a piece of trash like you. Speak. What's your name? How old is he? I'm asking you how old you were before you died. Fuck, are you an idiot? He's quite old. How could she be so insensible? I've wasted all those years of my life. It was as if he had lived his life as a dog. Saying that about you is basically insulting a dog and blaspheming other people's dogs. Bastard. Aren't you just a mass of energy? Don't you dare put on such a big show. What are you pretending for? Peeling you? Peeling you is your honor. What are you looking at? Hurry up and kneel down and reply. How the fuck did you grow so tall? It's like I have to raise my head when I talk to you. Do you think that's appropriate? That's right. Fuck, you don't even know how to kneel. How did you worship your ancestors when you were alive? Compared to that, I'm still very magnanimous. Yes, you should kneel more properly. Spare you? Why should I spare you? What are you howling for? Do you have tears? All you do is thunder and not rain. I didn't want to kill you in the first place. How can I spare you? Why are you so agitated? Why are you kowtowing? Where are you worshipping your ancestors? Hurry up and give me some spirit focus points. Hurry up and tidy up the good stuff here for me. Do you want me to do it myself? You don't have any eyesight at all. Trash, you're trash. Be good and you'll naturally benefit from it. Seeing Tribulation's soul burning as he went to collect the good stuff, Shadow sighed gloomily. If it weren't for the fact that the little one still needs to train, I really want to kill this guy directly this time. Why is he so disgusting? This kind of trash still has the nerve to live. Bah. Back then, I dominated the world and killed people like this on sight. I didn't expect that I still have to control my temper now. Tribulation's sword flashed and emitted a bright light. Hurry up. Fuck, can't you split up countless clones to tidy it up? Did you really become stupid after I said a few words to you? You're so smart. I want to promote you, but I'm too embarrassed to open my mouth. Look at your dull face. You're still clamoring for revenge. Even if your enemy is in front of you, do you dare to make a move? Back then, this sect was established by you, right? Could it be that you were the one who sold it as a bastard? How can such a weak person establish a super sect? Where's your backbone? Where's your strength of character? Fuck. What does it have to do with me? You don't dare to have it in front of me? Nonsense. If you only have backbone and grace in front of people who are weaker than you, what kind of lousy thing is that? It's fine if a man doesn't have strength, but having no backbone is the most terrifying. Don't look at that little strength that's less than a 10,000th of yours. His backbone is 1,000,000 times stronger than yours. Learn from him. Ian, it seems like you're not a man anymore. You're not even human. I'm tight on time. I don't have time to talk to you. I say, hurry up. Faster. Haven't you eaten? The pitiful Tribulation's divine soul worked hard without complaint under the endless complaints and curses of this unreasonably tyrannical super-existence. He collected all the things that originally belonged to his sect and sent them over. These were the accumulation of the entire sect for hundreds of thousands of years. They were given away just like that. As he collected them, his heart bled. What a cruel life. Why did he let him meet such a guy? Who was this guy? This aura seemed to be even stronger than the purple firmament heavenly emperor back then. No, it should be much stronger. It was simply too much. Of course, he also comforted himself in his heart. Anyway, I'm just a Tribulation's divine soul now. Even if all these things were left to me, I wouldn't be able to use them. Sigh. Sooner or later, it would be taken advantage of by others. If he gave it away, then so be it. If he gave it away early, it wouldn't take up any space. Who asked him to have a hard fist? If his fist was harder than his, he would be the one robbed, and that existence just sat there and collected the stolen goods without holding back. He shouted and cursed at the same time. Occasionally, when he was unhappy, he would punch and kick. The Tribulation's divine soul was angry but didn't dare to say anything. No, he didn't even dare to be angry. He only hoped that this terrifying guy would leave quickly. Remember to make your moves brighter in the future. This guy collected everything. With a wave of his hand, all of them disappeared. He scolded angrily, You can't provoke just anyone. For example, that guy just now. If you didn't provoke him, would you have been beaten up like this? Am I right? So, make your moves brighter. You can live a little longer. The tribulation's divine soul really wanted to cry but had no tears. You are really my biological father. If I had known that little guy had such a relationship with you, how would I have dared to provoke him? I would have treated him like an ancestor. As expected, my moves weren't bright enough. If I didn't have such a powerful backer, why would that little guy dare to insult me like that? I miscalculated. That's why I said that you are despicable. Despicable beyond belief. That novel is right. You are despicable, despicable, and despicable beyond belief. The shadow fiercely pointed his finger at the tribulation's divine soul's forehead and scolded angrily, "Bastard. Don't you know that you have to transform into a physical body for me to light? Is this little bit of fog very enjoyable? Fuck. You are so insensible. What's the point of keeping you?" The tribulation's divine soul felt so wronged that he wanted to cry. At the same time, he hurriedly transformed himself into a human head with texture. He staggered again and again as the shadow tapped him with his finger. So fucking despicable. The shadow scolded loudly. "You look like a grandson. Bah, a grandson of a grandson. You are fucking born to be a grandson. I don't know how your parents gave birth to you. Fuck. You are such a good for nothing." The tribulation's divine soul wanted to cry but had no tears. The tears in his heart had already flowed into a river. "All right, I've summoned this sword. I have to go back to sleep now. I can't be bothered with a despicable person like you. Bah, talking to you is blaspheming my status." The shadow raised his eyebrows. "Do you remember what I said?" I remember. I will never dare to disobey. I won't dare to disobey at all. I won't dare to disobey at all." The tribulation's divine soul nodded and bowed, hoping to send this god of plague away quickly. In such a situation, he couldn't stay any longer. "That's not enough. From now on, recite it 3 times every day. Once in the morning and once in the evening, including every word I scold you. Let me tell you, I can hear it. If I'm not satisfied one day, I will kill you. You despicable person. Yes, I remember. 3 times a day, let's go. This is so fucking boring. I only came out once, but I had to meet such a disgusting. Fuck. This world is so strange that it's scary." The shadow flashed and disappeared on the strange sword. Immediately after, the sword light flashed and disappeared without a trace with a whoosh. Woo woo woo. The tribulation's divine soul squatted on the ground and cried. Of course, it was the kind of crying that could only thunder and not rain. When had he ever been so wronged? When he was alive, he was bullied so much. After he died, he was trapped for hundreds of thousands of years. When he finally found someone to relieve his loneliness, he was actually relieved in such a way. He was basically sent away, entertained, and done that. I really don't want to live anymore. The tribulation's divine soul was heartbroken. The god of plague was finally gone. At the thought of this, and the fact that this terrifying and strange fellow was gone, the soul of the calamity began to cry with joy again. Woo woo. He is finally gone. I believe that even the extraterrestrial demons are not so evil. Woo woo. I am so happy. Chapter 1897. Inside the space, Chu Yang summoned. The sword didn't appear immediately. Chu Yang's heart turned cold. Was it really detained? That divine spirit's cultivation was so high that it might be able to intercept the sword. If that was the case, it might not be safe to stay in this space. Was he really going to die here today? At this moment, he suddenly felt his heart move. The sword had returned to his dantian and was lying there docilely. Chu Yang tried to summon it, but the sword was as usual. There was nothing unusual about it. Could it be that the divine spirit didn't notice the sword? Chu Yang was puzzled, but he didn't know what was going on. In a place he couldn't see, a shadow lay down slowly in the heart of the sword. Sigh, let's sleep. Let's see what this little thing does. It's best if it never disturbs me again. the shadow disappeared. As for whether it really fell into a deep sleep, that was unknown. Get out. That was what Chu Yang and the sword spirit wanted to do the most. Although they knew that there would be more and better things on the upper half of the mountain. And this was where the headquarters of the Heavenly Wind and Cloud sect was located. The real essence was here. But Chu Yang and the sword spirit weren't stupid. Why would they take the risk when the divine spirit was so terrifying? It might not even be safe in the space. What they had now was enough for Chu Yang to squander. Chu Yang carefully controlled the space and began to float out, for fear that he would reveal any flaws and be detected by the divine spirit. But after all, he didn't know where to go without using his eyes. And in the space, his divine sense couldn't penetrate. Chu Yang had no choice but to carefully open a crack in the space. He took a peek. When he looked over, he couldn't help but be astonished. It was sunny outside, without the slightest bit of haze. The soul of the calamity had actually run off to God knows where. Could it have set up a trap? To lure me out? That's very likely. Chu Yang was suspicious. He carefully determined the direction, and immediately closed the tribulation space again. Then, like a blind man riding a blind horse, he floated towards the crack that he had come from based on his instincts. With the divine spirit's extraordinary cultivation, and with the divine spirit's spiritual body, this place was still his home ground. So, even the slightest movement couldn't escape his detection. Naturally, he had already discovered Chu Yang's traces. Now, his body had turned into an empty void as he watched Chu Yang's tribulation space sneakily and cautiously run out. His expression was extremely complicated. Grandpa. Ancestor, please leave quickly. Please don't do it again. If you do it again, this old man will really disappear like smoke. Just now, I was tormented to the point of collapse 81 times. Why do you need to be so careful? Even if you openly show your face and run, this old man will definitely pretend not to see it. In front of you, I'm just blind and deaf. What? Could it be that he was trying to lure me into making a move? And then let that god of plague play with me again? Save me. Just thinking about it makes me want to die. Please leave quickly. At this moment, the tribulation spirit wished that it could send Chu Yang away with its own hands. However, he didn't dare. He really didn't dare. At this moment, Chu Yang's heart was trembling with fear. Don't be discovered. Don't chase after me. Thank the heavens. My luck has always been very good. This time is no exception. There definitely won't be an exception. There definitely won't be an exception. Now, it was a situation where both sides were afraid. Both sides were being careful. They were afraid of exposing themselves. However, one was deliberately hiding. The other was escaping at the speed of a turtle. To be honest, the tribulation spirit was definitely feeling much worse than Chu Yang. If he was discovered and scared this little ancestor, would that person come out again? If I come out and suffer like that again, I won't be able to live anymore. Seeing that Chu Yang actually floated in the wrong direction several times, the tribulation spirit was so anxious that he almost had a heart attack. Every time, he wished that he could fly over personally to help Chu Yang adjust his direction and let him out quickly. However, he just didn't dare to. Ancestor, please don't play with me. It's clearly right in front of you. Just move forward a little and you'll be there. Why did you go to the right? I'm so anxious, so anxious. If Chu Yang knew the tribulation spirit's current state of mind, he would definitely be so shocked that he would spit out a mouthful of blood and die. But he didn't know. After carefully probing for dozens of times, he finally entered the passageway. Chu Yang and the sword spirit drove the tribulation space with all their strength and floated up as if they were flying. Until they entered the dark passage, they finally walked through half of the soul-stirring and near-death journey. We can finally leave. Oh my God! Chu Yang and the sword spirit collapsed in the tribulation space. They were sweating profusely from head to toe and cried out in unison. The two of them looked at each other, full of extreme ecstasy of surviving a disaster and escaping death. We can finally leave. Oh my God! In that space, the tribulation spirit appeared and collapsed on the ground, panting heavily. I was so anxious. I was scared to death. Just like Chu Yang and the sword spirit, this extremely powerful calamity divine soul was also filled with extreme joy after surviving a calamity. The grievances I've suffered in my life were not as much as today. Even when facing the purple cloud heavenly emperor back then, he only killed me. But this almost made me collapse and die again after becoming a tribulation spirit. Woo woo woo. In the quiet space, there was a strange sound that sounded like weeping and complaining. It was as if someone was crying. This time, Chu Yang and the sword spirit looked down in surprise, and then their hair stood on end. What? We can still hear voices here. Damn it. Please don't catch up with us. The two of them sprung up as if they were loaded with springs. Using all of their strength, they sprinted forward at top speed. Their speed was definitely the fastest in their lives. In just a moment, they could already see the shining sword above them. The two of them relaxed weakly. Hey, sword spirit, I remember Shui Leihan saying that he didn't know exactly what sect this place belonged to when he came here the last time, right? Chu Yang looked at the sword formed from the sword intent and suddenly recalled this matter. However, he was a little uncertain. Did he say that? The sword spirit said blankly, I don't remember. Chu Yang nodded. It doesn't matter. If I were Shui Leihan, I wouldn't say it directly. The place that the purple firmament celestial emperor had destroyed and sealed was definitely a place with a great background. If I say it, I'm afraid there will be other trouble. When the two of them went in, it was probably early in the morning, and when they came out now, it was already afternoon. In other words, they had stayed in there for a whole 2 hours. Oh no, there's still an auction tonight. Chu Yang wiped his sweat. Sword spirit, you continue to stay here. I'll go back first. Sword master, there's no more death energy here. It's useless for me to stay here. Why don't I go back with you? Asked the sword spirit. Sure. One man and one soul. He drove the tribulation space as fast as lightning. Sword spirit, your cultivation seems to have improved a lot. It's practically doubled. Isn't that so? After swallowing the arm of that tribulation spirit just now, my cultivation has more than doubled. Furthermore, after devouring the souls of 10,000 souls, my cultivation base has soared to the middle rank of the saint realm. I'm only one step away from the peak level of saint. And this is still before I completely digest it. If I can't break through the limits of saint immediately, I believe it's about the same. The sword spirit was a little excited. Good. That's great. Chu Yang was excited. The sword spirit was definitely one of his own. The higher his cultivation rose, the more advantageous it would be for him. But there's still one thing that's quite strange. The sword spirit frowned and said doubtfully, even if I don't know why the arm of that tribulation spirit fell into the tribulation space, why didn't it resist at all? That's the purest soul energy. This matter was truly puzzling. Logically speaking, there should be some remnant of divine consciousness in there. Chu Yang also frowned. I can't figure this out either. But no matter what, it's good that we escaped. Let's leave that tribulation spirit to those big shots to worry about. Okay. When the two of them returned to the Chu clan's courtyard, they were suddenly shocked when they reached the gate. The gate of the Chu clan's courtyard had been turned into powder. It seemed that someone had violently smashed it into pieces. And now, in the courtyard, the sound of fierce battle could be heard. Is someone causing trouble? The sword spirit was furious. He immediately wanted to rush in. Wait. Chu Yang looked coldly and suddenly waved his hand slowly. This must be Yuan Shu's way of revenge. But we're not strong enough for the time being. We'll only embarrass ourselves if we force our way in. Then what should we do? The sword spirit said anxiously. Chu Yang's eyes were deep. He said, let me think about it. Don't act rashly for the time being. Chu Yang looked calm, but his heart was already in a mess. He wanted to rush in more than the sword spirit, but it was meaningless to act rashly. How was the Chu clan's courtyard now? How were Tai Butian and Wu Qianqian inside? How were the younger siblings? How were the children? How were the girls? How were the other sabresmen? Especially Tai Butian. She was still carrying the prophecy of mending the heavens on the path of 3 lives. Moreover, Yuan Shu's heart was restless. Would they be in danger? But Chu Yang tried his best to control himself. He knew that what he needed most now was to calm down. If he really rushed in without a care, then everything would be over. What should he do? Could he use the tribulation space to intimidate them? Chu Yang thought about it. It seemed that this was the only way that was relatively feasible at the moment. He made up his mind. Blood almost spurted out of his eyes. He said fiercely, "Sword Spirit, let's do this." The Sword Spirit listened to him silently. With a whoosh, he left the tribulation space and flew away. Chu Yang calmed his mind and took a deep breath. He controlled the tribulation space and sneaked into the Chu clan's courtyard. P.S. Before 10 p.m., the difference was 1,100 votes. After 10 p.m., the difference was 1,500 votes. Grit your teeth and continue to fight. Chapter 1898. As far as the eye could see, the courtyard was in a complete mess. Chu Yang left in the wee hours of the morning. The compound continued to operate as usual. Everything was in order. They were preparing for the second round of the auction that was about to begin in the evening. However, just after noon, an unforeseen event occurred. The gate of the compound was smashed with a bang. Then, 3 masked men in black rushed in. This was the time when people were most relaxed. They had just finished lunch, and it was also in broad daylight. Even if there was an attack, most people wouldn't choose this time. However, today's unforeseen event happened because of this blind spot in his thinking. It happened so suddenly that all the guards were killed almost instantly when the gate was broken. Fishy was the closest, and he rushed out when he heard the sound. Unfortunately, there was a huge gap in strength between him and the intruders. After that, Du and Sunkong fought with all his strength, and his saber managed to buy a few breaths of time, and didn't cause more casualties. Almost at the moment when Du and Sunkong was gradually unable to hold on, Lightning Snake and the others finally arrive. The 3 immediately joined the battle, and the 4 sabers finally stopped the 3 masked men in black. The battle was in a stalemate for the time being. Although the whereabouts of these 3 masked men in black were secretive, and no one knew where they came from, each of their cultivations had already reached the transcendental saint realm. Even though the Chu clan had Thunder, Lightning Snake, Giant Spirit, and Du and Sunkong's 4 blades working together, they were still at a disadvantage. Although the 4 of them tried their best to deal with them, and Thunderbolt Wild Blade and the other 2 displayed extraordinary tacit understanding, and shared most of the pressure, the situation was very dangerous, and they were in danger of being wiped out at any time. At the critical moment, Brother Tiger suddenly appeared, and used his own body to fight with all his strength, relying on his high speed. He restrained the 3 masked men on the outside, and finally prevented Du and Sunkong and the other 3 from being completely wiped out. However, Brother Tiger's injuries hadn't healed yet. Even if he tried his best, he could only be roughly equal to one of them. Even if he gritted his teeth and fought with all his might, he could only restrain 2 of them. As for the other one, he was really helpless. Finally, only 3 people came this time. Brother Tiger restrained 2 of them, and Du and Sunkong and the other 3 dealt with the last one. Sai Dao was bathed in blood, but he was still fighting and fighting with all his might. His situation was finally slightly better than before. He didn't let them break into the inner yard. If the other party managed to break into the inner yard, not to mention anything else, those children would definitely not be able to escape death. The battle seemed to be in a stalemate, but as the battle continued, Du and Sunkong and the other 3 were secretly complaining. Because the stalemate in front of them was just an illusion. Their side could collapse at any time. The other party was simply too powerful. Almost all of them were heavenly human-grade experts. Such existences were not something that the 4 of them could fight against. No matter how hard they fought, it was meaningless. They were still able to hold on. On one hand, the Lightning Serpent and the other 2 were cooperating with each other. They had a great tacit understanding with each other, and their combined might was greatly increased. On the other hand, the 4 of them did not hesitate to die together to intimidate their opponents. The other party was confident that they would win, so they would not risk their lives to fight with the 4 of them. That was why the 4 of them could barely hold on. However, This situation would not last long. As long as the four of them slowed down, the battle would be over in an instant. On the other side, Brother Tiger was barely restraining the other two. He was agile, and he walked faster and faster. It seemed that he was not at a disadvantage, but in fact, he had no chance of winning. The other two did not want to fight with Brother Tiger to prevent themselves from getting injured. If these two were ruthless enough, Brother Tiger would not be able to hold on. The three experts who suddenly appeared were at the level of the Snow Fairy Sea's young bow. The longer the battle dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for the Chu family. At this moment, they were about to be completely wiped out by the other party. As long as either side broke the stalemate, the Chu family's destruction was inevitable. The eyes of the three masked men in black flashed with a cruel and bloody light. Their mission was to kill the four people in front of them. Du and Sunkong was secondary, but the lightning serpent and the other two were the targets of this trip. As for other things, there would be others to worry about. The situation was good. As long as they dragged on for a while, they would be able to succeed. Puff! The Thunder Frenzy blade spat out a mouthful of blood, and blood splashed from his shoulder. He staggered backward, and a flaw appeared in the tight coordination between the three blades. Although Du and Sunkong quickly covered the gap, it was still useless. The Thunder Frenzy blade had been locked by the other party's cold sword, and it was not only him. The other two blades were also pressuring him. He could not even abandon the battle and escape. At this moment, there was a fluctuation in the void, and an ethereal and old voice said, "Who dares to make trouble here?" The three masked men in black were all veterans in battle. When they realized that the other party had a strong opponent, they did not dare to act rashly before they figured out who it was. They immediately stopped fighting and gathered in one place to be on guard. Brother Hu panted heavily when he saw that the strong enemies had temporarily retreated. He had already done his best to fight against two strong opponents by himself. The fact that he could persist until now meant that he had consumed more energy than Du and Sunkong and the other three. Lightning Serpent and the other two were overjoyed when they heard the voice. It was the voice of that senior. Their savior had arrived. Senior, the three of them should be from the Ghost Tribe. Lightning Serpent held back a mouthful of blood that was about to spurt out. His pale face had turned blood red, which was a sign that he was suppressing his internal injury. The three masked men in black looked around suspiciously. Their cultivation was extremely high, and they had reached the upper celestial being level. They clearly heard that the voice was close at hand, but they could not find a trace of a ghost even after searching with all their strength. How could they not be shocked? They could not help but be vigilant. An expert. How powerful must he be to be able to make an expert of the upper celestial being level like himself not detect it? What level should he be at? The three masked men looked at each other and saw the horror in the other two's eyes. To be able to reach this level, he must be at least a peerless expert of the saint level. Such an existence was not someone the three of them could afford to offend. Even if the three of them joined forces, it would be useless. Fortunately, the other party seemed to be an elder, and he seemed to have a good temper. Let's see what the other party will say. The three of them were from the Ghost Tribe after all. The other party might not be unafraid. If they acted rashly, they would be courting death. Sigh. When will the grudges of the Jianghu end? Chu Yang was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He could not wait to kill the three of them immediately, cut them into pieces, and dismember them into pieces. However, he did not have the ability to do so now. You three juniors are still not leaving? Do you really want this old man to start a massacre here? The old voice said faintly. The three Ghost Realm experts looked at the mess here and once again sensed the other party's powerful cultivation base. There was also the monster glaring at them from the side. They looked at each other and cupped their fists. Senior is so magnanimous. We thank you. Farewell. Such an existence. They definitely could not defeat him. Moreover, the main character, Chu Yang, was not here. If they forced themselves to make a move, they would only invite a strong counterattack from the hidden person. It was pointless to take the risk. So it was better to leave as soon as possible. The three of them no longer hesitated and flew away at the same time. Senior, why did you? Lightning Serpent and the others were confused. We have suffered such a great loss here. How could you let them go so easily? Should they say that this senior was too well-mannered, or, when you have improved your cultivation, go and get the place back yourselves? Do you think I can protect you for a lifetime? You're so useless. Chu Yang threw down a bottle of elixir and then checked the situation. He found that the injury was not light, but it was not fatal. He finally breathed a sigh of relief, fed them an elixir, and immediately rushed to the backyard. Do you think I don't want to kill people? But I really don't have that ability now. Lightning Serpent and the other two immediately understood. Yes, if they were dealt with by the senior, under his protection, their mentality would definitely change. Not to mention other things, there would always be some dependence. Only when they really got the place back, would it be their dignity and face. Just like the three of them vowed to defeat the infinite invincible blade. The three of them immediately got busy, healing their injuries, and then cultivating. After the matter in the front yard was settled, Chu Yang rushed to the backyard anxiously. The first thing he saw was a mess. Wu Qianqian was unconscious with blood at the corner of her mouth. Huyan Aobo and the others were also lying on the ground. No one could move. Tai Butian was nowhere to be seen. Chu Yang's heart sank. He woke everyone up as fast as he could. Wu Qianqian had just woken up when she grabbed Chu Yang's arm. Quick! Go and save Sister Butian. Chu Yang's heart surged with the craziest desire to kill. The thing he was most worried about had happened. Could it be that the prophecy was unavoidable and was destined to happen? What exactly is going on? Tell me the important part. Chu Yang asked hurriedly. He already had a conclusion in his heart. Ghost. Yuan Shu Dao. This guy must have suffered a loss and came to take revenge. Wu Qianqian took the elixir. She did not even have time to activate her energy to catalyze the elixir. It turned out that when the incident happened in the front yard was in a mess. Tai Butian knew that there was a change in the situation and immediately arranged for Brother Hu to go to the front yard to help. But as soon as Brother Tiger left, a man in black suddenly appeared. This person was extremely powerful, and the women were not his match at all. Fortunately, this person did not seem to have the intention to kill, or perhaps it was because of his status that he disdained to kill women, so no one died. However, all of them were heavily injured. As for Tai Butian, she had been abducted. Or rather, that person's target was Tai Butian. How long has it been since that person took Butian away? Chu Yang took a deep breath. He could no longer suppress the madness and violence in his heart. His intuition exploded with a boom, about the time it takes to burn a stick of incense. Wu Qianqian had just finished speaking when she saw Chu Yang already in the air with a whoosh. You all stay at home and heal yourselves. I'll go and bring her back. Before he finished speaking, he had already disappeared without a trace. But there was an extra bottle of elixir where Chu Yang was just now. Chu Yang was burning with anxiety. Like a black line, he sped through the air. His speed had almost reached the limit of his life. Sprinting. Chapter 1899. Lord Swordmaster, if you go like this, even if you can make it in time, you won't be their match at all. The sword spirit said anxiously, the only thing we can do now is to ask for help from His Majesty. Only His Majesty, it's too late. Even if I want to ask for help from His Majesty now, where can I find him? There's still time. Yuan Shetu is a perverted demon and he had a major conflict with me previously. How can Tian Tian escape from falling into his hands this time? With Tian Tian's temper, once she's humiliated, it'll be a lifelong regret. Even if she doesn't commit suicide, she'll definitely not stay by my side anymore. This matter cannot be delayed. Even if it's faster, it'll be faster. Chu Yang said angrily, just think about it. Xue Leihan's army still hasn't made any moves. Even one person hasn't appeared. How can we still rely on Xue Leihan's army? A sea of locusts? But your current strength. The sword spirit hesitated. Strength is not a problem, but, as a man, If I don't step forward when ZJ's woman is in trouble, I'll be a shit. Chu Yang's eyes were so dark that the white of his eyes couldn't be seen. They were completely black, a crazy black. Even if I don't have the ability to face them head-on, I still have the ability to take them down with me. Other people are risking their lives, but I'm risking my life for the world. Being old isn't your trump card, Chu Yang said coldly. The sword spirit said in shock, "Don't tell me you want to." Chu Yang didn't say a word. His body seemed to fly as he descended. His heart. It was as if a pot of boiling oil was boiling. It was extremely anxious. Bu Tian, I'm coming. No matter what, I'll save you. No matter the cost. He ran at full speed as if he didn't care about his life. In a moment, he was outside the city. In front of him was Mo Yuntian's camp. Mo Yuntian came together with 3 super sects this time. Of course, there were 3 camps as the base of the camp. And Chu Yang didn't hesitate at all. He directly walked towards the largest camp. Step by step, he walked faster and faster, without any hesitation or pause. Although there was no evidence, the other party admitted it. However, there was no need to think about this matter. It was Yuan Shitu who did it. Except for the ghost hunter and Yuan Shu too, no one else would do this. The calamity sword was already in his hand. The sword light was dazzling and filled with murderous intent. Who? Stop right there. Stop right there. A voice suddenly sounded. Chu Yang didn't pay any attention to him, and continued to walk forward. A few black-clothed men flashed like ghosts, and blocked Chu Yang's way. Who are you? What are you doing here? The first black-clothed man looked at Chu Yang coldly. Tell Yuan Shitu to come out and see me, the man in black in front of him said. Each and every one of them had a much higher cultivation than Chu Yang. However, Chu Yang's voice did not fluctuate at all. He just calmly stated ZJ's request. His voice was calm, like a pool of stagnant water, without the slightest bit of vitality. You! Meet our young master? The man in black laughed. You want to meet our young master? What kind of shit are you? You won't let me in? Then I'll go in. Chu Yang's eyes moved slightly. Right now, his eyes were filled with grayish-white. Everything he saw, including people and things, were all grayish-white. There was no trace of life at all. He had always been calm and wise. At this moment, he could not see ZJ at all. Everyone on the other side. They were all stronger than the current Chu Yang. However, Chu Yang could only force his way in. He could only fight to the death. Now that things had come to this, there was only one way to save Tai Butian. This method was the last resort, and it was Chu Yang's life. Chu Yang did not hesitate at all. Chu Yang walked forward slowly and spoke softly. Qingwu is my woman. For her, I can make any sacrifice. Qianqian is my woman. For her, I can also make any sacrifice. Tiantian is my woman and the mother of my son. For her, I will not hesitate to risk my life. It's not that I want to let you down in this life, but there are some things that I have to do now. If any of you were in this situation, I would do anything to save you, even if it's my life. As a man, if I can't even protect my country's woman, how can I still be called a man? If I can't even protect the mother of my son, how can I face my son when I see him in the future? Since fate has forced me to this point, I, Chu Yang, don't regret death. Don't regret death. Chu Yang's footsteps were getting faster and faster. The black-clothed man in front of him could only hear him muttering shit to himself, but he really did hear it. Chu Yang was already rushing towards him. His voice also became faster and faster. If Tiantian is destined to face this calamity, I, Chu Yang, will bear it. If Butian is destined to die, I, Chu Yang, will accompany her. No matter what, I don't want to have regret. I don't want to have regrets even more. Qingwu, Qianqian, I'm sorry. Chu Yang looked up to the sky and roared, Yuan Shitu, hand her over. The originally clear calamity sword suddenly emitted an extremely dazzling light. It was so mighty and brilliant that one couldn't look directly at it. It was like the sun in the sky, descending to the mortal world. With my heart's blood, I'll destroy all calamities. Chu Yang laughed wildly. In an instant, He circulated the heaven-splitting divine technique in reverse. All his dantians exploded and shattered at the same time. All the power poured into the death dantian, forming a huge whirlpool. Of course, no one except Chu Yang knew about all this. That was because all this was happening inside Chu Yang's body. Even the sword spirit didn't expect that Chu Yang would act so quickly and so resolutely, even though he knew that Chu Yang was going to do it. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky, as if a lightning tribulation was coming. An elegant figure came from afar. But it was still just a black dot. It seemed to be shouting, "Shit." But Chu Yang didn't want to hear it. Even if he heard it, he wouldn't stop the next step. He resolutely and steadily pierced the dazzling sword tip into ZJ's left chest without hesitation. It pierced into ZJ's heart. At this moment, his face was even very calm. Calamity Sword Master, reverse heaven and earth. Then, he laughed hysterically. Calamity Sword Master, Calamity Sword Master. He, ha 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 ha. In the heart, dark red blood immediately spurted out. The dazzling light on the sword tip caused the blood to gush out. It disappeared instantly. Only the blood gushed out and dyed the entire sword body red. Chu Yang stood upright. He was expressionless. The surrounding black-clothed men were at a loss. This guy. He came to us. He said a bunch of nonsense just to commit suicide here. They had to admit that this situation was really too strange. It was beyond common sense. Do you think that we'll be afraid if you commit suicide? At this moment, an unprecedented tyrannical power radiated from Chu Yang's body. Chu Yang suddenly raised his head. His eyes shot out a substantial fierce light. Thousands, tens of thousands, or even more sword energy appeared out of nowhere. Endless sword energy instantly filled the whole world. With my heart's blood, destroy all calamities. This move was the ultimate move of the Calamity Sword technique. Once this move was used, no matter how many enemies there were, they would all be killed. Chu Yang was only a revered martial artist in his previous life. But once he used this move, he still slaughtered countless enemies instantly. Now, Chu Yang was at the heaven level. He was more than 1,000 times stronger than in his previous life. Destroying one's own foundation. If he unleashed the full power of this move, he would definitely be able to slaughter a saint. Of course, the price of using this move was also heavy. First, he would hurt himself, then the enemy. However, the end of his own life was after the enemy's life. He would be able to take revenge and leave no regrets even if he died. Chu Yang slowly pulled out the sword that pierced into ZJ's heart. The sword tip was stained with the heart's blood of the Calamity Sword Master. It was dazzling red. The sword tip trembled slightly, spontaneously emitting an extremely deep sense of grief. At the same time, a terrifying aura that was enough to destroy the world appeared simultaneously. It pressed down heavily. Chu Yang took a step forward and said indifferently, "Come on. No matter how many people there are here, let's go to hell together." Oh no. How did such a big mistake happen when I just lay down for a short while? This is fucking a shit matter. Is this shit matter worth this much effort? Calamity Sword. That shocked and doubtful figure flashed. Oh my god, what should I do now? This is not fun. In the tent. The moment Tai Butian opened her eyes, she saw a young man in black staring at her with an evil and satisfied smile. Tai Butian's first reaction was not panic. Instead, she sat up calmly and checked ZJ's clothes. Seeing that they were still intact, she felt relieved. She said coldly, "Who are you? Where is this shit place?" "I'm the young leader of Moyun Sky, the first disciple of the demon ghost. My name is Yuan Shitu." Yuan Shitu smiled proudly and looked down at Tai Butian. He said teasingly, "Beauty, can you tell me your shit name?" Tai Butian frowned and said, "Can an ugly girl like me be called a beauty? Is this the aesthetic standard of Moyun Sky? This aesthetic standard is very different from ours." Yuan Shitu laughed loudly. "Beauty, you don't have to pretend. Others may not be able to see through your disguise, but I'm an exception. I've been studying women's bodies since I was young. I can see through them at a glance." Tai Butian smiled faintly and said, I admire you. But I wonder what you want to do by bringing me here. Seeing that she could still be so calm in such a situation, Yuan Shitu couldn't help but be secretly surprised. He smiled evilly and said, "Firstly, I like women. Or should I say, I like to play with women, and you happen to be my favorite type. Secondly, you're Chu Yang's woman. Chu Yang, that little brat, has offended me. Therefore, I want to play with you even more. I believe that playing with you will definitely be especially satisfying, doubly satisfying." Chapter 1900. Bu Tian had already recognized the situation at once. The man in front of her had a very high cultivation level, at least 1,000 times higher than her. She was definitely not his match. If she resisted forcefully, she would have no chance at all. The only thing she could do now was to try her best to stall for time and wait for reinforcements. Update P. Even though Tai Butian also knew that Chu Yang didn't have such a high cultivation level and didn't have enough power to shake the strongest sect in Mo Yuntian, she was afraid that she was doomed this time. However, she controlled herself and didn't let herself panic. Even if there was no hope, she had to persevere. If it really didn't work, she could only commit suicide to preserve her reputation. I won't be disappointed. I believe the only one who will be disappointed is you, because no one will come to save you. Even if someone does come, they won't be able to reach here. Yuan Shitu stood up and walked around Tai Butian. He clicked his tongue and said, "What an excellent figure. If I play with such a figure on the bed, it would be extremely comfortable. Just thinking about it makes me impulsive. I didn't expect to have such luck today. Beauty, I'm coming." As he spoke, he was about to pounce on her. "Wait." Tai Butian looked at him coldly and said somewhat mockingly, "Mo Yuntian, the leader of the younger generation, are you so lustful? The so-called first successor of the demon ghost, is he a lustful man who has never seen a woman before?" Yuan Shitu's eyes turned cold. "Woman, are you trying to provoke me? You should know that you'll only suffer if you provoke me here. Also, with me here, you don't even have the slightest chance to resist. Could it be that you're still holding on to the illusion that someone will come to save you? With Chu Yang's insignificant strength, what can he do?" Tai Butian said mockingly, "Didn't you say just now that you want to know my name? Why, have you changed your mind now and don't want to know? Mo Yuntian, the leader of the younger generation, is he so fickle? He only knows how to bully a weak girl and force himself on her just because he's a man." Yuan Shitu looked at her with interest. "I'm waiting for you to say it yourself." Tai Butian smiled indifferently. She looked at Yuan Shitu as if she was looking at a child. Although she was much shorter than Yuan Shitu, her gaze was condescending. She slowly said, "Aren't you very interested in my true appearance? What? You don't even want to see my face now? Is it because you don't have confidence in yourself that you've given up on making me take off my mask? Otherwise, why would you be in such a hurry? Or are you saying that this is the limit of your skills and you've run out of tricks?" Yuan Shitu suddenly felt an indescribable sense of defeat. Under this woman's gaze, he even had a feeling of "I'm very small and insignificant." It felt very real, even very real. It was as if this woman was a real big shot and he, Yuan Shitu, was just an insignificant ant. But the truth should be the other way around. This feeling made him very unhappy. He was extremely displeased. He smiled fiercely and said, "It won't be too late to look at you after I've played with you. I believe that after you've experienced this young master's toughness, you'll automatically show me your true appearance and even completely fall in love with me." Tai Butian smiled contemptuously. So, the young leader of Mo Yuntian is just a pervert who has no confidence at all and can fancy any woman. Seeing once is better than hearing 100 times. To think that you're such a character in person. Mo Yuntian is indeed a land of outstanding talent. The sarcasm in her words was obvious. She didn't hide her disdain at all when she praised him. Nonsense. Yuan Shitu was furious when he heard this. But for a moment, he couldn't refute. The number of women who had gone through his hands was really more than 1,000. There were many who cooperated and tried to curry favor with him, but there were also many who disobeyed him. It was just that those women were either crying in fear, begging or cursing angrily. But there was really no woman who could be so calm in front of him. Not only was she surprisingly calm, but she also had the attitude of a monarch looking down at the ants and scolding him from above. Could it be that this woman's status was really very high? This thought flashed through Yuan Shitu's mind, but was immediately replaced by a desire in his heart. He smiled sinisterly and said, "This young master is the least afraid of women being stubborn. Let's see if you can still be stubborn after I strip you naked." He strode forward and grabbed Tai Butian's arm with one hand. His other hand was about to tear her clothes apart. "How dare you?" Tai Butian straightened her body and stared at Yuan Shitu angrily. For a moment, an endless majestic aura was emitted from Tai Butian's body. This was the domineering aura that could only be cultivated as an emperor for many years. It was magnificent and majestic. Yuan Shitu suddenly felt that the woman in front of him had really become high and mighty. She was sacred and inviolable. This was the typical aura of a superior. It was definitely not fake. Yuan Shitu couldn't help but feel a little dazed for a moment. He actually took a step back involuntarily. If Yuan Shitu's cultivation was about the same as Tai Butian's, or only slightly higher than hers, he would probably be immediately intimidated by this natural majestic aura. He didn't dare to continue offending her. However, Yuan Shitu himself was also a person of high status and power. Moreover, he also had a high cultivation. Faced with this pressure, he was only slightly confused and immediately recovered. However, he was a little angry that he was actually intimidated by such a woman. "Bit. You're courting death." Suddenly, he exerted force in his hand and with a tearing sound, Tai Butian's clothes were torn apart. Tai Butian exclaimed. Her eyes suddenly turned resolute. She shouted, "Wait." Her body suddenly retreated backward. Yuan Shitu smiled sinisterly and said, "What are you waiting for?" He continued to approach. Obviously, he had already made up his mind to force himself on her. Tai Butian made up her mind. The internal energy that had already gathered in her heart meridian was about to explode immediately. In fact, when she had just woken up, she had already sensed the danger that she was in and had already made preparations. She had already gathered her internal energy near her heart meridian. Once she sensed that the other party was about to use force, there was no room for negotiation. She would immediately destroy her heart meridian to protect her innocence. Only this method of activating energy in advance and waiting for death was something that no one could stop. Yuan Shitu sensed that something was wrong. He was also a cultivation expert and instantly understood the reason. He shouted angrily, "How dare you!" He immediately rushed forward to stop her. Tai Butian closed her eyes and shouted in her heart, "Chu Yang, my husband, farewell." She was about to activate her internal energy self-explosion immediately. Coincidentally, at this moment, a fierce roar came from outside. The voice was anxious and violent. "Yuan Shitu, hand her over." It was Chu Yang's voice. Tai Butian's heart shook. Chu Yang had come. Yuan Shitu laughed strangely. "Oh, Chu Yang has come. What a good timing. I'll let this green-headed turtle see how I play with his woman. If you offend me, you'll have to pay a price that's worse than death." Tai Butian stared at him with extreme disdain and ran desperately toward the door. Although she knew that Chu Yang's visit was probably of no use, Tai Butian still hoped that she could take one last look at Chu Yang. "As long as I can see him, even if it's from afar, then I can die without regrets today." Tai Butian's chest was hot and cold. "Or, if I die, Chu Yang will be fine, and he can still live." Yuan Shitu came from behind with a smile. He didn't have the slightest intention of stopping them. "I'll just let the two of you meet again. I like to see people so affectionately parting in life and death. Then, I'll snatch you from him and let Chu Yang watch as you toss and turn happily under my body, unable to stop it. Even if he doesn't want to watch, he won't be able to die. I want to thoroughly toy with the two of you. Only in this way can I have more fun." Ha ha ha. Tai Butian turned a deaf ear to his words and had already rushed out of the tent. Outside the tent, nearly 200 experts of the demon ghost had gathered here. They were all looking coldly at the entrance of the camp. Tai Butian's heart sank completely. With such strength, what was the use of Chu Yang coming? Yuan Shitu didn't even need to do it himself. Any one of the people here was probably stronger than Chu Yang. Chu Yang's arrival this time was just a waste of his life. She ran out recklessly and shouted anxiously, "Chu Yang, leave quickly, leave quickly." As long as Chu Yang left now, Tai Butian would be satisfied even if she died before seeing him. The men in black were about to stop her, but Yuan Shitu's cold and mocking voice came from behind. "Don't stop her. Just let her watch. Let her see clearly how Chu Yang died, and let her give up from now on." Everyone looked at each other and smiled. They knew that the young master was probably going to play the kind of torture that he was best at and loved the most. They couldn't help but be excited. When Tai Butian came out, Chu Yang had already activated with my heart's blood, "I'll destroy all tribulations." When Tai Butian was shouting, Chu Yang had already calmly sent the tip of his sword into his own heart. Tai Butian had just rushed over when she saw Chu Yang piercing his own heart with his sword. Tai Butian was already on tenterhooks. When she suddenly saw this horrifying scene, the vital energy that she had forcefully gathered was immediately disrupted. She saw stars and fell to the ground. Tears gushed out of her eyes as she murmured, "Husband." She heard Chu Yang's cold voice say, "With my heart's blood, I'll destroy all tribulations." With tears blurring her vision, Tai Butian tried her best to widen her eyes. She looked at the figure in black that was slowly moving forward. She also looked at the sword that was slowly being pulled out of Chu Yang's heart with the boiling blood. Fresh blood dripped down. Chapter 1901. The white-bearded old man in black sighed. At this moment, he wanted to tear Yuan Shitu into pieces. How could such a strong person be threatened by others? You can beg him, admit defeat, or even beg for mercy. But, you absolutely can't coerce him, and his using a woman he snatched to threaten a super strong person. This Yuan Shitu must be crazy. It was the most unsuitable path, but he had chosen to take it. Of course, the black-clothed, white-bearded old man was completely wrong about this. It wasn't that Chu Yang didn't want to negotiate, but he really couldn't hear anything now. Besides, it was too late for any conditions now. Because Chu Yang had already used his ultimate move. Once this move was used, everyone present was destined to go to the Yellow Springs together. Chu Yang cruelly walked all the way. He swung his sword all the way, destroying everything in his path. He was invincible. Blood rained down from the tribulation sword. In front of him, there were still people. For the time being, there were still people. Behind him, there were all corpses. Along the way, a river of blood flowed behind them. Everyone had died miserably as one could imagine. In front of Chu Yang, there were only 30 to 40 people left. Everyone's face was ashen. Even though everyone here was an expert among experts, and everyone had killed countless people before, witnessing such a clean massacre with their own eyes today still made them tremble with fear. Especially when many of the people who were killed were at the same cultivation level as ZJ. They couldn't resist at all and were killed like chickens. Maybe in the next moment, it would be ZJ's turn. ZJ would be like those people before him. Dying miserably. Everyone felt like they were dreaming. It was a horrible nightmare that they never wanted to have. They all thought, if we're lucky enough to survive today, we'll definitely make Yuan Shitu suffer a fate worse than death. Damn it, this bastard caused us to die. Yuan Shitu grabbed Tai Butian and subconsciously retreated slowly. His face was completely pale. At this moment, he realized that ZJ had really poked a hornet's nest this time. They had hit a super iron plate. He regretted it very much. However, no matter how much he regretted it now, he could not change the fact. He couldn't save anyone's life. Everyone, attack together. The black-clothed, white-bearded old man shouted, "Now that things have come to this, there's no turning back. We can only fight with our lives on the line. We can only move forward bravely. Only then will we have a chance to survive. Split up the manpower. Protect young master and escape. Hurry up and leave. Put that woman down and don't grab her anymore. If you bring her back, perhaps the entire Mo Yuntien will fall into a nightmare. The black-clothed, white-bearded old man almost vomited blood as he cried out. If it was Yuan Shitu's identity, they would definitely not care about it and directly hand it over. But now, they absolutely did not dare to do so. Even if ZJ really died this time, he wouldn't dare. Someone immediately flew out. On the way to pick up Yuan Shu, young master, let's go. Leave. Where should we go? Yuan Shu asked helplessly. You can fucking put this woman down. I beg you. That person grabbed the unconscious Tai Butian and said angrily, hurry up and run. He pulled Yuan Shu and was about to escape. But at this moment, Kong's murderous aura rose sharply again. That world-destroying aura also rose to its peak in an instant. Everyone seemed to have fallen into a nightmare. They were muddle-headed and could no longer move an inch. Cha, cha, cha. Chu Yang's footsteps sounded like a death knell. His cold eyes remained motionless and the cruel smile on his lips was still as cold as a knife. Who in this world dares to snatch my woman? Chu Yang looked up to the sky and roared violently, who dares? The people of Ghost's territory stood stiffly and couldn't move at all. They were like wooden sculptures. Everyone had an urge to wail in their hearts. Although everyone had seen many deaths, to be implicated and die in such an aggrieved manner, it was too unjust. Everyone had already received the news that such a big incident had happened here. Not only Mo Yuntien and the other two sects had come here, even Yun Tian and Shuexian had rushed over. Looking at the hell-like scene in front of them, everyone kept quiet out of fear. Other than shock, there was only horror. In such a strange and infinitely terrifying situation, Chu Yang was the god of death that no one could resist. Who dared to stand up for Ghost's territory? Who dared to stand up for Yuan Shu too? That was courting death. Not only courting death, but also dying miserably, never to be reincarnated and beyond redemption. Even Mo Yuntian's other two big sects, after seeing this situation, everyone felt insecure and kept quiet out of fear. They were afraid that Chu Yang would implicate them. Who would dare to step forward? What's more, it was Yuan Shitu who was in the wrong first. He snatched someone else's woman, so he naturally had to bear the other party's revenge. Others would take the blame for him? Based on what? Besides, he couldn't snatch a woman from someone. There were so many women in the world, but Yuan Shu too wanted to court death. There was nothing to say. No matter what he did, he had to pay a price. Yuan Shu too had met such a tough opponent before. That was because of his luck. Of course, it was also the price he had to pay. But it was different this time, or it could be said that his luck had come to an end. Naturally, he had to pay the price in full. This matter was really suspenseful. Yun Tian looked at the situation and his expression was unusually heavy. Chu Yang was only at heaven stage previously. This was confirmed by many people. The elder took a deep breath and said, yes, so we have to get what we want as soon as possible and send it back as soon as possible. Yun Tian pondered and nodded slowly. In a faraway place. Dreamlike veranda. Mo Qingwu screamed inexplicably. She was originally cultivating, but her petite body fell from the sky without any warning. She only felt a sharp pain in her heart. She almost couldn't breathe. At this moment, her heart actually missed Chu Yang so much that it was as if she was going to die. The next moment, her heart suddenly convulsed with pain. Mo Qingwu screamed and fainted. While she was unconscious, Mo Qingwu seemed to have a dream that she didn't want to recall. She dreamed that ZJ returned to the purple bamboo forest in her previous life and was ambushed. Then, Chu Yang rushed over and fought ZJ to the death. Suddenly, Mo Qingwu's heart felt empty and sad. Suddenly, she felt dizzy again, as if she was in another space. There was no one in the surroundings, and everything was hazy and white. Is there anyone here? What the hell is going on? Where is this place? Mo Qingwu shouted. But it was only Yu who answered. Silence. It was terrifyingly empty. Mo Qingwu was puzzled when she saw a figure in front of her. She focused her eyes and saw that it was Chu Yang who suddenly appeared in front of her. She was looking at him deeply. It was as if he was an illusion. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.